Hey there, welcome to another edition of What's Hot with Tranquility. I'm your host, Pete Pardo, publisher of SOT. Visit us on the web at www.seeyourtranquility.org. Today is Monday, April the 6th. Spring is here, and lots of metal and prog is being released. So we've got a full show jam-packed with new releases, so we're going to blow through all of them today. You're going to have a lot to put on your wish list after this show, I guarantee it. So let's start off with young, new wave of British heavy metal stalwarts, Night Demon, Curse of the Damned, brand new. You're hearing to hear their trio. These guys obviously studied their early 80s new wave of British heavy metal stuff, and this is just classic, Gibson Flying V, bass and drums, just ripping it up. I love this. What's not to like about this? It just screams 1982, Go out and buy it. Metal Blade. Check it out. Night Demon. Talk of the metal world the last week or two has been the latest from Nightwish. Endless Forms, most beautiful. The studio debut of Flora Jensen, ex-After Forever vocalist, who actually replaced Annette Olson a couple years back, first for just a live setting. They just needed her to fulfill all the live commitments, and then they made her the offer to become the full-time vocalist, and she accepted, thank God, because she's amazing. If you follow Nightwish, this is just a really, really strong album. It's Finnish, symphonic, power metal at its finest. It's melodic, it's heavy, it's orchestral and symphonic. It's got little folk influences. Flora sounds great. She can do the upper register, operatic stuff. She can do the great mid-range, powerful mid-range. She can do the gentle, melodic crooning as well. Personally, I think she's the best fit for this band. As great as the old Tarja era stuff is, to me, she was always a little too operatic. I know I'm in the minority there, and I'm going to get all sorts of hate mail. Annette Olson, I think, fit really well with the band. Maybe she was a little too pop-oriented. I think Flora Jensen is kind of the meeting of the two, and I think she's just got the power, and she's got the look, and I think it's going to work out fine. So check this out. Great new album. Really, really good. It's going to wind up on a lot of people's best of lists come the end of the year. Let's switch over to AFM Records for the new one from Magic Kingdom, Savage Requiem. Neoclassical, melodic, symphonic power metal. They've got the singer from Adagios in the band now, and it's just, ripping guitar work, great keyboards, manic rhythms. It's a lot of it's really manic speed metal. You got some mid-range, epic power metal tunes. I think, if you like Rhapsody of Fire, Yngwie Malmsteen, Adagio, and, other bands who do that sort of thing, you'll probably really dig this. There's some really, really strong material on here. I like it a lot. Like I said, we're going to stay on AFM Records. We've got the new double disc set, live set from Eaton's Curse. It's called Live at the Curse. I mean, these guys are spectacular. They're probably, you can classify them as like a melodic metal band, symphonic in spots, just 80s style hard rock. Killer guitar work, powerful vocals, great rhythms, keyboards. With 2 discs, you've got a great cross-section of all their best material. It's just one solid, memorable song after another. I can't highly recommend this enough. It's going to be one of my favorite live releases of the year, so make sure you investigate that one. Now, this next one, another 2-disc set. This has become very near and dear to me in the short time I've had it. Uli Jon Roth, Scorpions Revisited. So, we're going to go back in time to the early 80s, and I was a young metalhead in training, and I discovered the Blackout album by the Scorpions, actually right as I saw them open up for Rainbow at Madison Square Garden on the Straight Between the Eyes tour. I think that was 82, maybe 83, something like that. And, as soon as I really digested Blackout, I was really, really into it, I said, let me check out some of their older stuff. So I went and investigated the Uli Jon Roth years, and it was completely blown away. As much as I love, the 80s Scorpions material, for me, what I go back to the most now as a almost 50-year-old guy is those albums, Taken by Force and Virgin Killer and In Trance and Flight to the Rainbow, and most importantly, Tokyo Tapes. So, Mr. Roth has been getting prodded by the fan base for years to play more old Scorpions classics. So if you've seen him live, as I have numerous times over the last, say, 5 to 8 years, he's been injecting more and more classic Scorpion material in his set, so he decided to put a new band together, go find a stage somewhere, which he found in Germany, an old theater in Germany, and do live in the studio on a stage in front of no audience versions of some of these classic tunes. They did most of them in a couple takes, and you got two CDs here worth of, you know, In Trance, Fly to the Rainbow, Virgin Killer, you know, Life's Like a River, Catch Your Train, Polar Nights, you know, it goes on and on and on. Hellcat, you know, they're all here. He sounds amazing on the Sky guitar. He's got a great singer who kind of, to me, sounds like a cross between Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, Klaus Meine from the Scorpions, and Glenn Hughes. There's two other guitar players helping out. He's got some keyboards, bass, and drums. It's fantastic. And, you know, these may not usurp the originals from the Scorpions, but, you know, it's pretty close. You know, for me, some of the definitive versions of those songs are on Tokyo tapes. And, you know, like Fly to the Rainbow on here is fantastic. And I think the version on here is better than the original Fly to the Rainbow studio version, although maybe not quite as strong as the Tokyo tapes. But either way, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Check it out. Pick it up. Love it. Just like that. We're going to go switch over to Sweden now. Europe. War of Kings. Now, I know what you're saying. Yeah, the Final Countdown, Carrie, all that kind of stuff. I haven't followed Europe in 20 years. Well, you know what? You're really missing out, because this band, you know, has regrouped over the last, I think, 3 or 4 albums. Their music is heavier than ever. You know, if you liked Wings of Tomorrow, which is the album that came out before the Final Countdown in the early mid-'80s, it was a pretty damn heavy album. You know, very 70s hard rock focused. Well, they're kind of back to that again. It's like they went and studied their UFO, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple and Thin Lizzy albums for this. And it's just, you know, Joey Tempest sounds great, better than ever. I mean, this guy's a great singer. And he's singing like 70s style heavy rock here. And you got, of course, the incomparable John Norum on lead guitar, who's just fantastic. There's some really heavy material on here. Again, don't discount Europe. Don't just say, hey, I remember the 80s cheese, because this is some serious stuff here. I told you, check it out. You'll like it. We're going to stay in Sweden. We're going to go over to the Tranquility label, Burning Saviours, Unholy Tales from the North. Sort of an EP, I guess. 7 tunes, but roughly about a half hour's worth of music. These guys play like a 70s style hard rock with like classic doom. So, you know, think of a mix between like Sabbath, Pentagram, throw some of those heavy 70s bands in there, and that's kind of what you got. You know, some really, really crushing stoner meets doom riffs and wah-wah guitars and heavy grooves, strong vocals. I like it. I want to hear more from this band, so this is very, very cool. Again, Burning Saviours out of Sweden from Tranquility. You like instrumental stuff? I know you do. Points North, the new self-titled release on Magna Carta Records from this trio, who kind of play a style similar to like Steve Morse Band, Dixie Dregs, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, that sort of thing. It's phenomenal. I mean, these guys are rock solid. The grooves here are addicting. They're funky. They're heavy. The guitar work is off the charts. The bass playing incredible. Drumming incredible. And, you know, unlike most instrumental albums that you hear, where you have to listen to it a bunch of times before things start to sink in, and it's all solos and that sort of thing, there's just great riffs here. There's great grooves that catch you instantly. And for me, these days, that's what I like to hear in an instrumental album. So it's got bits of prog, it's got some metal, it's got some hard rock, it's got some funk, it's got some jazz fusion, a little bit of everything. This is going to be on my top, whatever list at the end of the year, 50, 100, 25, 30. It doesn't matter. It's going to find its way in there somewhere. So again, Points North, self-titled, on Magna Carta Records. If you like this, their previous one, which I forget the name off the top of my head, is excellent as well. So Points North, remember that name. Let's go all the way over to Israel now. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go for some classic thrash meets 90s groove metal a la Pantera meets a little death metal for Shredhead. Death is Righteous. Pretty funky album artwork. I like this. This is pretty solid. You know, really good guitar work, some rough, effective vocals, great rhythms. You know, not going to set the world on fire with originality, but sometimes you don't really need that. Just a really good, like 90s style metal album. You know, I hate to keep harping on Pantera, but I hear that a lot in their music. And, you know, with touches of death metal and some really good guitar virtuosity. So, Shredhead, very good, very solid. Now we're going to go over to Japan. to the world of progressive rock and jazz fusion for the latest from Happy Family called Minimal Gods, and this is on the Cuneiform label. If you've never listened to these guys before, you really should. They've been away from the scene for a while. They've been kind of quiet, but I actually have a few of their releases from the early mid-90s, and really, really good. If you dig classic King Crimson, specifically like the John Wett and Bill Bruford era, mixed with some Mahavishnu orchestra, pretty heavy stuff. Well, that's kind of what you get here. So, bass, drums, keyboards, and guitar, really, really heavy, chaotic, dissonant, complex, loud, really loud. This is pretty loud and aggressive stuff from the Cuneiform label, which usually puts out a lot of stuff that kind of falls into the avant-garde, jazz fusion, prog. This is pushing the boundaries. I love it. Really, really good. So make sure you check them out. Happy Family. I'm going to stick with progressive rock. We're going to go to the Esoteric label and this brand new live album from Van de Graaff Generator, British prog legends. It's called Merlin Atmos, and it's actually made up of recordings from the 2013 tour of Europe. So you've got all sorts of classics on here from the old days, like A Plague of Lighthouse Keepers, Childhood's Faith and Childhood Zen, Man Erd, Morgless, Scorched Earth, as well as some more recent material, plus some Peter Hamel solo classics like Gog, and it's really solid. You've got Guy Evans on drums, Hugh Banton on organ, and of course the incomparable Peter Hamel on vocals, guitar, and piano. I mean, Peter sounds better than ever. For an older guy, he's still singing fantastic. Hugh Banton's organ, I've always loved. It's great on here. I'm missing David Jackson, the saxophone in this incarnation of the band. These guys have been performing as a trio now for a bunch of years, and it's still very good, very solid. They fill in a lot of those saxophone bits with dual keyboards, and it's great. But on some of these, especially the older classic tunes, I'm kind of missing that squealing sax from Mr. Jackson. But, it is what it is. I'm just happy they're continuing on. So another solid live album from Van de Graaff. They've put out a few in recent years. We're going to stick with Prog, guys. From Athens, Greece, we've got Ciccada, The Finest of Miracles. I mean, this is just a lovely album. Just get a load of that artwork. It's just a really, really good album. Female vocals. Reminds me at times of vintage Renaissance with some bits of Camel and some bits of Griffin, a little Gentle Giant. So you've got there's like violin on here and cello and flute and guitars and mellotron and piano and Hammond organ. This is a really, really nice album. And really surprised the hell out of me because I've never heard of this band before. And, definitely if you're a prog fan, you must seek this one out. Really, really good. It's reissue time as we're winding down here. So we've got from the folks at Audio Fidelity, who have done such a great job releasing classics on the SACD medium. We've got this great, really good Best of the Guess Who, which was originally released, I believe, in 1973 or 74, sold millions of copies, by that time. Actually, it might have been released a little earlier than that. But by that time, Mr. Bachman had already left to go form some other bands, eventually made his way to Bachman Turner Overdrive, but this is early Guess Who classics. Most of these you'll know, These Eyes, and, all these just wonderful, wonderful songs that were all over classic rock radio, actually back in the day, AM and FM radio, but we've all heard them a million times. And the sound of this is fantastic. Whether you have a SACD player or just a conventional CD player, we'll play in that as well. This has been remastered to perfection, crisp and clear. You can enjoy all these wonderful hard rock and pop tunes once again in just pristine quality. Just a really, really good greatest hits set. Let's see. We're going to go back to Cuneiform Records now for this just absolutely mind-blowing Soft Machine live album from Switzerland, 1974, featuring Alan Holdsworth. Yes, the guitar genius Alan Holdsworth was in Soft Machine for a brief period of time. He appeared on that Killer Bundles album, which you've got lots of material from here, as well as some early Soft Machine favorites. This is all instrumental, jazz, rock, fusion, prog of the highest order, with just amazing guitar solos from Mr. Holdsworth and just killer keyboards from Carl Jenkins and Mike Ratledge. You've got Roy Babington on electric bass and John Marshall on drums. You know, and you got it on CD here and DVD. Can't beat that. The quality is excellent. So can't recommend this highly enough. Soft Machine, Switzerland, 1974, from those always great folks at AFM Records. Now we're going to go over to this really interesting little oddity. I never heard this band before. They're called Kelakos. It's called Uncorked Rare Tracks from a Vintage 70s Band. You know, these guys were a short-lived band. Came out in the late 70s. And they kind of, I don't know, if you listen to this CD, I hear bits of classic Doobie Brothers, maybe the Raspberries, some Grand Funk Railroad, that sort of thing. And, you know, the leader of the band was George Michael Kelakos Haberstro, I believe that's his name, guitar player, really, really tasty player. A bunch of other guys in the band, but the drummer's name is Carl Canady, which I'm sure you thrash metal fans probably recognize that name. He, of course, was the producer for acts like Overkill, Testament, Anthrax, and many others throughout the late 80s, early 90s. Actually, he was a much in-demand producer for a lot of the Bay Area New York thrash legends. So I like this quite a bit. You know, there's 15 tunes on here. It's very good, very listenable. In fact, you know, Mr. Kelakos' guitar work sounds to me a little bit like vintage Tommy Bolin. So some of it's, you know, hard rock, some of it's kind of poppy. There's a couple tunes that kind of are border on jazz fusion a bit. A good, very varying CD for anybody who's into kind of long-lost 70s rock from the vaults. So, really nice little album. And let's see, we've got also another reissue, Child of Darkness from Bedemon. All right, this is on Relapse Records. These are actually the old original recordings from Bedemon, which was actually an offshoot of Pentagram. Featured most of the Pentagram band at the time. If you like 70s underground doom, I can't recommend this highly enough. You know, it's, you love vintage Pentagram and Black Sabbath and like St. Vitus and that kind of stuff. This has to be in your collection. Nothing more I can say on that. It's great. Bobby leading on vocals, you know. We're going to jump over to we got a Blu-ray for you here. It is Miracles Out of Nowhere, the story of Kansas. This is fantastic. I have a Blu-ray copy. It comes with I ordered it directly from the band, pre-ordered it. Came with a bonus DVD of extra interviews, and also a CD, which is basically the soundtrack to the movie, to the documentary. And the soundtrack basically features like a bunch of classic Kansas tunes, a couple live versions of classic Kansas tunes. But this is basically about an 75 or 80 minute documentary. The telling of the story of Kansas, how they, you know, became the band, and right up until the huge success with Left Overture and Point of No Return. It doesn't go any further than that, which is my one gripe about it. I would have liked to see a little bit more, and maybe then touch on, you know, modern day Kansas a little bit. But they figured they'd take them from their humble beginnings as a progressive rock band out in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, to becoming stadium superstars, million-selling albums, hit singles, that whole thing with Left Overture and Point of No Return. Very well done. All the original band is here. All of them. They're all together for the first time ever in the same room since the early 80s. There's interviews with them. There's roundtable discussions. There's lots of vintage live concert footage. They talk about every album that they released in that span, which is kind of cool. So if you're a Kansas fan, you probably already have this, but if you don't, I highly recommend it. With that, we are going to finish up on all the new stuff, and we're going to go to old stuff. So as you know, we call that Forgotten Favorites. So we've got here the 1994 release from Norwegian Viking / black metal giants, Enslaved, Frost. See that with the glare? There we go. You know, this is their second album, and it's a great one. You know, the vocals are all in their native tongue. It's all heavily, you know, they've got, thankfully in here, the lyrics for all of us non-speaking folks to kind of understand what the songs are all about. And it's all about, you know, Viking mythology and lore and all that kind of wonderful stuff. And you know, back in this time frame, the band were, you know, still doing that fairly full-on black metal style, but you can hear the progressive tendency starting to creep into the music with the bits of atmosphere and some keyboard passages and things like that. So, you know, you can kind of see where they wound up like they are today. It was kind of like a slow movement to that style. But you know, this is obviously a lot more raging and aggressive than some of the more recent material, but still quality, really, really good. So this is kind of like a underrated Enslaved classic, in my opinion, that I always go back to so often. And lastly, we have this wonderful, wonderful reissue that came out a bunch of years ago, actually not that long ago, a few years ago. It's by a band called Steel Mill. It's called Jewels of the Forest. I absolutely love this, and you just, I don't even know how to describe this. It's if you can imagine a meeting of Black Sabbath, Jethro Tull, and maybe some Deep Purple. Yes, I don't know. This band, put out some material, and I believe this most of the stuff is from 71 through 72, and that was 70 through 72, and it's just absolutely amazing. I mean, there's just some great heavy riffs here. You've got like the reeds coming in every now and then, and some keyboards, and great rhythms, memorable songs. If you love like underground 70s prog meets proto metal, I can't recommend this highly enough. It's from the Metal Blade offshoot Relics label, and I heard about this from someone else. I'd never heard of this band before, and just decided to take the plunge and buy it, and I never regret it. It's just really great. Rise Above Relics, they just do such a fantastic job on releasing all this stuff from the vault, so you really can't go wrong. It's got a great booklet, jam-packed with photographs and artwork and the story of the band, and all sorts of old live shot. It's just great. It's been one of my most listened to CDs in the last couple of years, and just happy I got a hold of it. So with that, I know we went through a lot of stuff today. I'm going to close out this edition of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. We've got somewhat focused and special show for you next week. We're going to be featuring a host of new and recent releases from the Nightmare Records label, which is the label run by my good friend Lance King. Vocalist supreme. He puts out and appears on a lot of kick-ass power and progressive metal albums, and he has sent us a whole stack of stuff that he's released over the last year or so, and we're going to talk about them in depth next week. And then the following week, we will be on location once again at Brian's Backyard Barbecue in Middletown, New York. Brian is a wonderful guy who owns a killer barbecue restaurant, as well as he has live music all the time, lots of classic rock and blues acts, guitar players. He's got a lot of really interesting shows coming up this summer that we're going to talk about, and we're going to do a show of all forgotten favorites with lots of great bands and artists from the 70s. And so join us then. For now, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of the week. Talk to you soon. Keep on rocking. Make sure you put lots of these great new tunes on your wish list. You won't regret it. Take care.